Good morning. It's Vlogtober day, let's see, 21. Yes. Okay. So, yeah. So I'm going to vlog about two funeral stories today. Well, two mortuary stories today. Um, they're just kind of like, dealing with the people at the funerals. Okay, so, well, one of them is. So the first one is about this lady, and she was sick. I guess she knew she was going to die. So she went into the funeral home that I worked at, and she already had pre-arrangements, which means she goes ahead of time, arranges her own funeral, picks out her own casket, flowers, all that kind of stuff. She did this because she knew she was dying. And she paid for it and everything, so I would see her coming in and out of the funeral home, and I'm thinking, she's just doing this for when she gets old, because a lot of people do this. They go ahead and pay for their funeral so their kids don't be burdened, and stuff like that. So a lot of people do this when they get around a certain age, and then they just wait years and years, and then when it's their time, the funeral's already paid for. So I thought she was just, one of those people that were extra prepared. So I would see her come in and out a lot, and I was like, hi, how are you, da 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 da. And she was making arrangements with another funeral director. And like a few weeks later, a body comes in, and it's her. And I was like, oh my God, I just saw this lady last week, a week ago or something like that. And they were like, oh yeah, she came in and prearranged her funeral, paid for everything in advance, brought a nice dress for her to be buried in, and shoes and jewelry and all that stuff. She already, that was that dress that was hanging in the embalming room that, had been there for a couple of weeks. I was like, oh, I was wondering why that was there. I thought someone, forgot about it or left it or didn't use it. And I was like shocked because I just talked to this lady the week ago, the week ahead. Maybe it was 1 or 2 weeks. Can't remember, but it wasn't that long. So, she's embalmed, and they have her funeral. And it's just so strange because, you just talk to this person, and now they're laying in the casket. And she wasn't even sad. Like, when she was walking through the funeral home, she was just like nothing was wrong. It was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to pay for this. She was just like, oh my, it's totally at peace with it. She was just like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and pay. And, she was patient. Like, she wasn't trying to rush anyone. She was just hanging out, talking to people, just like normal. And she, what happened was that she had cancer or something, and or organ failure or something, I don't remember, but it was strange how she was acting. It was like she was just totally fine with it, and like it was not a big deal. But I didn't know at the time, that she was dying, but she wouldn't let on that anything was wrong. So it was kind of strange. I've never seen anyone that okay with dying. Oh well, maybe she was ready to go. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm going out in style. I'm gonna go pick out my own stuff, bring my clothes. At least she made it about herself. Anyway, I guess she took it as like she was planning her wedding, but she was just basically planning her funeral. I don't know. I guess that could be. I don't know. I guess if I was dying and I wanted to be buried and I had the time to actually pick out all my stuff, it would help me to, be able to accept the fact and come to realization with it. Maybe that's why she did it. Okay, well, next story. Okay, next story is about, this lady died. She left behind like grown kids, like, in their 20s. And the lady supposedly was supposed to have some insurance, a lot of insurance money, right? So when it's time to pay, after the funeral arrangements have been made, now when it's time to pay, they give me the paper to go call the insurance company to verify the amount. I call and they're like, ma'am, this policy has already been, you know, cashed in, and she used it while she was alive. There was only like a little bit left on it, probably barely enough to cover the funeral. So, you know, they used that money to cover the cost of the funeral, but there was nothing left for her children or anything, right? So weeks and weeks later, I'm out eating at a restaurant, and I go out to my car because it's time to go, and I see this lady like looking at me, and she's like, I know you. You were the funeral director that was at my mom's funeral at, you know, such and such funeral home. She says, yeah, I remember you. You were really nice. And I was like, yeah, I remember you too. And I was like, so what are you doing over here? And she's like, oh, I live, and she pointed to like a motel, like a motel. And she's like, oh, I live there now. I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm divorced from my husband, or he's divorcing me. I'm like, why? What happened? And she was like, well, when we got married, my mom was sick, and he thought that I was going to inherit all her money when she died, and because she had a big insurance policy, and she had spent it up, and when she died, she didn't really leave us anything. So he got mad and divorced me, and now I'm living here with my kids at a motel. I'm like, really? I was like, oh my God, that is terrible, you know. And she was like, yeah, I think he only married me for my money. I'm like, I couldn't even say anything. I was like, well, man, that's a shame, you know. I don't understand why somebody could do that to you. And she's like, I know, and it's pretty sad, and I don't know. I got to get a job and find a new place to live, and da 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 da. I'm like, oh my God, I just saw you, and you know, you had her husband and all that stuff. It's crazy how some people. Never mind, I'm gonna get into that in a different time and place. But it's crazy how women are that gullible. Anyway, some women, not all women. But anyway, that was the end of that story. It was just pretty messed up. Oh, I have another one since I didn't take too long. Okay, so there was this lady. She died. She looked young. She looked maybe 40 years old, but she looked young for 40. So she was really, you know, young looking. And they brought her body into the funeral home. She didn't look like anything was wrong with her, you know, everything intact. Really pretty. And so it's like, what happened to her? And the guy's like, oh, she drank herself to death. Alcohol, you know. I'm like, what? Yeah, she was an alcoholic. And she just drank herself to death. And she had kids and everything, y'all. I was like, oh my God, what? Like, I could not imagine why someone would drink themselves to death, you know, and be that, you know, irresponsible when they have like young kids. So it's like, oh my God. So whenever I'm like drinking or, you know, overdoing it in the alcohol department, I think about that lady. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be like that ever. So I don't really hardly drink anymore. But when I did, like back in the day, I used to drink. Like when I partied, I drank a lot. But it was for fun, you know. Young people do that. And then when they get older, it's like, okay, a few glasses of wine. And then when they get older, okay, give me a wine cooler. Okay, when they get real old, okay, just give me a sip. I'm like into coffee now, y'all, but and tea and all that kind of good stuff. But back then, I would use her as an example as what could happen if you overdrink. And like, once I knew that she was like an alcoholic, I could see the signs. Like her teeth were rotted from the alcohol, and then her skin was dry from the alcohol. She had bags, you know, and so you could kind of see the wear and tear on a person's body. Oh my God, my dog's outside chasing cars. When they drink a lot, or when they do you know, when they smoke or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind when I go out to drink. I am not gonna end up like this lady. And then, like, okay, I got another story. Since it's so quick, these are like little short ones. So one time I lost my keys when I was at work. So my brother had to come pick me up from work. So he came and picked me up, my younger brother, and I have an extra key at the house. So he brought me home. I got my extra key. He brought me back. I guess I gave him some gas money, y'all, because it was very far. So he brought me back, and I got in my car, and yeah, but he wanted to look around the funeral home, and nobody else was there. So I was like, okay, you want to go look? So, because I have the keys to the funeral home, so we go in and we go into the embalming room. And the thing is, the reason why I did show him the embalming room first, because when he was driving me to and from to get my key, he drove like a maniac. He drove crazy. He had already been in like a couple wrecks, totaled like 3-4 cars. And he, you know, those guy drivers that just drive off fast and cut and speed through lanes and cutting people off and just drive stupid like that because it makes them feel good about themselves for some reason. I don't know. Okay. Well, he used to be one of those type of drivers. And I hated driving with him. It's like, oh my God. Like, I hated it. So I said, you know what? As many wrecks as you have been in, you can kill somebody or you can be killed. And I'm going to show you, you know, what you're going to end up like if you don't stop driving like that. So I took him in and I showed him like all these dead bodies, and he had never seen one before, right? So he was like in shock. And on the way home, like I could see him driving slower and using his signal and going the speed limit. So I kind of like scared him straight, but it didn't last long. He still kept driving like crazy like that until he lost that car. And then he had to buy his own car because my mom would buy him cars, you know. And then when he had to buy his own car, he still has it to this day. You know, it's like he learned his lesson and he was more responsible. His insurance and all that stuff, you know, taught him a lesson. So yeah. Anyway, so like if you ever want to scare someone straight, take them to a funeral home or a morgue. I swear that will scare them straight quicker than anything. It might not last long, but it'll help for a second. And they do like a lot of scared straight programs, and they'll like ask the funeral home or the morgue if they could, you know, do a tour through your school, through your facility. And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no, depending, you know. So we've had a couple of tours of the Scared Straight program that come through one of the funeral homes that I worked at, and they would take them into the embalming room and show them what happens and, you know, what it's like when you die, and do you want to continue on this lifestyle path because this is where you're going to end up. And you know, it kind of, I think it might work, and it will stay in their memory for a long time because, you know, I mean, who can forget seeing a dead body at, you know, laying on an embalming table? So, you know, that probably was a good thing for some of those guys. Anyway, oh, there was girls there too, y'all. I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah, there were girls there too. You can tell that, like, they were probably had gotten in trouble with the law, and this was part of their community service or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching so much. A thumbs up if you have any requests, questions, or want to know about a certain type of situation, you know, in the funeral industry. Let me know and I'll try to answer it. Okay, bye.